Hello, everybody, and welcome to Control+M Presents, our regular sessions helping you get the most out of the Plex online ERP system. So just a reminder, I'm muting everyone as they join, and I'll unmute when the time for questions arise. And of course, we'll be recording this session and posting it along with all of our other sessions on our YouTube channel. These sessions are no cost, no obligation, and available to everyone who uses Plex. I'd like to introduce you to one of the newer members of our team, Carol-Ann Ouimet, who joined us this year and has done a fantastic job not only helping our English-speaking clients with Plex, but also those who speak French. So hopefully Carol-Ann will be doing things this session today in English. Carol-Ann's in our Canadian office, and she has great experience working with Plex, including workflow, data management, and not only is she terrific at Plex, she's also a Six Sigma green belt, Lean Six Sigma green belt. So she's always helping us improve. Today, she's going to talk about ways to manipulate data going into Plex or coming out of Plex. So without any further ado, take it away, Carol-Ann.
Thank you, Patty. I almost feel bad stopping the party that you had going there, the music. So welcome, everyone. Today, I'm happy to share some useful tips and tricks that will make your life easier with data manipulation, whether it is to convert data from your legacy system to bring it over to Plex, or to manipulate data coming out of Plex to be used in various reports. We will look at the typical file types that exist and see how they differ from one another. We'll also look at ways to ensure that you are able to open these files correctly, all while keeping the integrity of the information. We will review 7 different tricks to add to your toolbox to make you more efficient, all while maintaining your data accuracy. And finally, we will share the uploads that currently exist in Plex that allow for data updates. Different file formats are available when extracting data from systems. If you're working on getting some data out of your current system to bring them over to Plex, the following file formats may be available to you: CSV, XLS, XML, and perhaps you aren't quite sure which one to choose. I will cover a few key elements to know for these different file types to help you choose the right one for you. The first one up is the CSV file. CSV stands for comma separated values, and as you can see on the image below, at the bottom of the page, it comes out as a long string of text divided by commas. And it makes it a little hard to read for a regular human. Programs like Excel help decode this and make it easier to read. An important thing to know is that once you save a file into CSV, you will lose things like formatting and any additional tabs. So we highly recommend that you keep a master file in another file format. It is also important to know that there's a specific way to open CSV files to avoid losing trailing zeros or leading zeros. So that would be part numbers that start with a 0, for example, or end with a 0, for example. We'll cover this a little later today. Finally, if you're bringing data out of Plex, out of your current system, and for example, your customer addresses come into one field divided by commas, you won't want to use the CSV file, as it will want to break that info up into multiple columns, one for city, one for state, one for zip. That's probably not what you're looking for. Oops. Moving on to XLS. This is essentially the standard Excel format that you have been used to. This is the file to use to keep formulas, manipulate data with the tricks we're going to show you in a few minutes, use multiple tabs, and keep all of that intact for the next time you will open your file. Essentially, a good master file. However, this file type can't be used to import in Plex. It must be saved as a CSV or XML to do so. The last one we're going to cover today in terms of file type is the XML, which stands for Extensible Markup Language. And essentially, it has the same benefits as the XLS file, but it can also be used to import into Plex. It will keep your formatting and any additional tabs when you import it. So we'll import the first tab, but it will still keep the additional tabs as references. So how do you choose which file type to work with? Well, it depends on the way you work. if you're using reference files on other tabs and your main sheet has the info formatted as needed in Plex, you can use an XML and use it as your working file and import file. If you want to keep some reference columns, for example, on your master sheet while you're working on it, and only hide these reference columns for the import, you may prefer to use an XLS format. Hide your columns and copy the visible cells to a new worksheet that you will save as a CSV for the import. We will also cover the visible cells shortly. Our pro tip of the day is make sure to keep your working file in XML or XLS. We have unfortunately witnessed some cases of lost information with a CSV file. Keep that one for the final import. Some of the formats presented require a one-time setup to read them correctly or require additional steps to maintain data integrity. The first time you open exported files, like an XML to your computer, it may be a little tricky. It is possible that your computer won't know what app must be used to open and read the file. Here are the steps to correctly do this so your computer knows how to treat these file types the next time around. So essentially, you will save your file on your computer. Then you will right-click on it and select Open With. If Excel doesn't show up like it does here for me, then you will click on More Apps. And then follow the folder sequence that is shown in the box here until you reach the folder named Office 16 and find Excel. I would recommend selecting Always Use this app to open XML files, so you only need to do this setup once. When data is extracted from Plex via queries, the information comes out as CSV. As I mentioned previously, one of the risks associated to CSV is to lose the trailing or leading zeros. So here's the methodology to open CSV files the right way to ensure the information is kept intact. So I have the information here with some screenshots, but I'm actually going to move into a real Excel file to show you how that would be done. So the first thing you're going to want to do, just give me 2 seconds here, is to open a new workbook, a plain workbook. Then you're going to go in the tab named Data and click on Get Data from File, and you're going to select From Text or CSV. You're going to get your CSV file, click on it, and then it will give you a preview. And as you can see over here in my second column, I have some elements that are starting with zeros, and these zeros are being kept. So if I'm happy with what I'm seeing in my preview and it seems to reflect the right information, I can click on Load, and this will open it into an Excel format that I could then save into an XLS, for example, or an XML. So that is a safe way to transform your data when it's coming from a CSV to ensure that you're going to keep your trailing zeros or your zeros at the beginning. Now let's move over to the tricks to make data manipulation more efficient. Select visible cells is a function that is very useful when manipulating a lot of data. By default, when you select a range of cells in Excel, hidden cells are also selected, so they are copied when you copy a selection. There is also a risk that exists when you filter data and copy and paste on the filtered portion that some of the information underneath may be affected. I personally have taken the habit to click on the Select Visible Cells button before pasting. Although there is a way to do this one time, what I'm sharing now is a way to add this command to your quick access ribbon. I feel this is something you will be using frequently. So to do so, you will click from Excel on Files, then Options. This will bring you to this window over here. Then you will find the command that's called select visible cells. To do that, you will want to change to all commands, and then it's in alphabetical order. Move to select visible cells. Excel will then require that you select which tab you want to add this command to. So in this scenario, I'm adding it to the Home tab, and you will need to create a new group to customize. So you can right-click, click on Add New Group, and then by clicking on Add over here, you will add the Select Visible Cells to the Home tab. So this is essentially what it looks like. A button was added to my Home tab or Select Visible Cell in a new group. I also decided to add this button to my Quick Access toolbar simply by right-clicking on the button and selecting Add to Quick Access Toolbar. If you are working on an XLS spreadsheet and you have hidden some columns and you are now ready to prepare your CSV file for import, you would select your spreadsheet, click on Select Visible Cells, and paste it into a new workbook and save as a CSV. Let's move over to a true example in Excel. So let me start by filtering over here in my part attributes. Oops. Okay, so let's say I have some data over here that I want to filter. So what I'm going to try to do is filter on the status to remove the inactive status. So to do that, I'm going to select my spreadsheet, go in the data tab, click on filter, which adds filters at the top of my columns. I will then select my status filter and remove the inactive. If I select the entire spreadsheet and click on my select visible cells, see how it's now showing me everything that it's skipping? It's really just highlighting the visible cells and avoiding everything that's hidden in the back. So now, once I click select visible cells and I copy using Control+C or using a right click and copy, this is the result I'm going to see. And if I now paste it, it will only paste my visible sheets or my visible records. So now if I filter, I don't have any inactive over here. I only have my active that I have pasted from this first sheet. Let's move to text to column. Sometimes your data comes out of a system in a different way than what is needed to get it into another system. One example in Plex is the part item numbers and revision that come into one column or one field. Using text to column will allow you to separate the information from one field into multiple different columns. Another common example of this is contact names. Often the first name and last name are combined and you may need it in two separate fields. I will go ahead and move over to Excel to show you how this all works. So essentially you have the steps over here that I'm leaving as a reference. So if you come back to this recording in our YouTube channel, you'll be able to look at this page and have a recap. But now we will actually go into the demo to show you how to do this. So if I'm looking, for example, over here, I have my last name and first name that are combined together. So what we're going to want to do is actually select the column that I want to modify. I will then go into data, select text to column. Unless your information is really in a defined length, you're mostly going to choose delimited. You're going to move to next. And then over here, you're going to choose your delimiter. So in my case, my delimiter is a comma. So I'm going to select comma, and it gives me a preview of how it's going to split my information over here. The ones that are often used are comma and space, and sometimes some specific ones that you have in your company. I'm going to show you one later with a tilde. Then you're going to hit next. And over here, what I'm going to point your attention to is the destination. So I don't want to bring this over the information I currently have. So I'm going to go and select where I want it to start inputting the new information. So I'll put it to C and then click back to see my final selection and click on finish. So now I have my last name and first name divided into separate columns. The other way to do this is when I have the first name, last name, and address all combined together. That sometimes happens. So you would use the same concept here where you would select, go in data, do text to column. I'm going to hit next again, and I'm just going to bring your attention over here to the preview that is shown. Notice how over here I have my zip code on the first one only and not showing on the other ones. So I'm just going to hit cancel here just to go and see what could explain this. So right now, everything seems formatted the same way, but if I click on this file, on this record, it's all in one line. And if I click on this record, I'm going to notice that there's actually a line break. So sometimes data comes this way because sometimes data has been manipulated manually. That happens. So if you want to take this into consideration, you're going to go ahead and select again all of your information, click on text to column. We're still in delimited. And what we're going to do is we're going to select comma because we have that, but we're also going to select other. And then I'm going to type Control+J, which is a command to add the delimiter of a line break. And now you're going to notice over here that I have it in a separate column. And then I'm going to go ahead and click on finish. So this is an example here. I purposefully did that difference just to show you how you can use it one way or the other. So the other option, scenario that we often see, especially in Plex, because of some of the reports that come out with the part number and some reports that come out with the part number and the rev, or even when we're working with customers on importing their, working or massaging their part numbers. If, for example, your part number has part number rev and then the rev number, and you want to be able to divide that into two different columns, the use of the tilde could be very useful to do that. So here's how we would do it. So here's an example of some test data where I would have the rev, and my rev could be sometimes, in lower caps, sometimes in uppercase, and I want to be able to divide my lowercase and uppercase. So I'm going to go ahead here and add just safely two columns to make sure. And what I'm going to do is select my first column. I'm going to do a Control+F for find. And then I'm going to go in the replace tab over here. And I'm going to say that I'm looking for rev, and I want to replace that with a tilde. And I'm going to say replace all. So what it did is it replaced all of my rev with a tilde. And then from there, what I can do is do a text to column, stay with my delimited, and in this case, say other, and input my tilde. Sometimes he doesn't like it. Okay, let me just close my file here and reopen it. I've been having a few issues with my Excel. Great. Okay, so let me get back to this one because I know when I use the Control+G and the tilde in the same session, for some reason it doesn't like it. So I'm going to save a new book. I'll continue and I'll show you that right at the end when I close this file up. It works marvelously well. So tilde, let me put this. So let's move on to the next topic and I'll come right back to the tilde after. The opposing function of the text to column is the concatenate function. So sometimes we have data available in two fields and we need to merge them into one. To upload part info in Plex, for example, the part number and rev number must be combined. So let's go back to our first name and last name example and see how we can reverse that. In this little box over here, what I put is essentially the different uses to add a space, a comma, and a different word. So I'm going to give those examples right after, but this will be something that you could keep afterwards to see how you need to add this piece of information. So if I go back to my name over here. Okay, and I want to bring those two back together. I could use the concatenate. So I'm going to start by putting the equal sign, starting to write concat. And as you can see on my version of Excel, concatenate has a little warning sign. Excel has a plan to eventually move from concatenate to concat, but I know some people in our team didn't have the concat. So concatenate is, remember this and you'll be okay. And worst case, it'll show just concat as an example. So essentially the way you're going to do this is concatenate, then you're going to say, what's the first value that I want to merge together? You're going to put a comma, and then you're going to say, what's the second value? And then you're going to save it. And that's going to put them together and not create a space. If you want to put a space between the first name and last name, sorry about that. Okay, so if you want to put a space between those ones, you're going to go after your comma and you're going to add a double quote, a space, and a double quote followed by a comma. That's going to give you last name and first name with a space. If you want to put a comma instead of a space, you will put the comma over here between the double brackets, and it will give you this result. Another way to accomplish this is to work with the ampersand and character. It essentially does the same thing as concatenate, but some people may find it easier to use as it follows a sentence logic. You want to include this and this. Sorry, my Excel is not following right now. Or this and this over here. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can use this one. So again, we're going to do the equal. I'm going to say that I want this one and the first name. It's acting out on me. So over here, I'm selecting C, it's saying B. So let me just write C and D. And it's going to combine it like it did the first time. Same concept. If I want to add a space, I'm going to say and. I'm going to put a double quote, a space, a double quote, and I will have my last name, first name. And finally, to show you the same concept as we did before, I can have also my comma over here, and it's going to give me the same result. So it becomes really a question of preference. If you have about 8 different fields that you need to combine together, it could sometimes be a little easier to say this one and that one and the other one. So it'll be up to you to decide how you want to use this. Oh yeah, I want to show you a funny thing. The other one that you can do is you can actually add, for example, I'm going to use this formula, copy it over here. And what I can do is I can add, for example, a word as well. So I can go and put my double brackets, put Mr., for example, and then, oh, I'm in the and one. So let me show you and. Here you go. And now I have Mr. Smith James. I'm going to add a space to that. And then I can apply that to everyone below normally. So that could be a quick way when your Excel is collaborating to apply it to everyone underneath. The downside of that for this example that I just gave you is that this will apply it to everybody, even if it's women. So you may want to use this in a really, in another type of fashion than what I just did. So again, back to this this page, I did one for the concatenate, one for the ampersand and character. And as you can see over here, highlighted how you would be able to add those different spaces, comma, and word to your formulas. The next one has 3 different use cases, but essentially it is meant to fill in missing data. For example, a revenue report that has many lines for one customer. You will probably want to copy that customer ID down to multiple empty lines. So here are 3 different options to do this. When you want all the values below to have the same value, you can double click on the handle at the end of the cell. It will repeat the same value for every empty cell below. So let me try to just close everything that I have in Excel here to put the chances on my side here. That one. Okay. Okay. So let's go over here. So let's say we have like a revenue report example where I have my customer A and all of this data over here is for customer A and it goes on and on. So I essentially want to fill those empty cells over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy over and keep an example of what it looks like. And the first way that we can approach that is by double clicking over here so that it autofills until it meets another set of criteria. That could be a little long. It could be nice if you have a small sample, but it could be a little long if you have a long list to go through. So we're going to cover another way to do that. So the other option is to select my my column. Then on my computer, I have to do function F5 to bring up this box. I know you can also do Control+G to do the same thing. And some people may be able to accomplish that just with F5. I have it written down on the sheet after. You're going to click on special over here. You're going to click on blanks. And essentially what it's going to do is highlight all of the blanks. And now what you're going to do is add the plus sign and then select the cell that's right up where the plus sign was, and then hit Control and Enter, and it will autofill all of the information. So we just essentially did what we did over here, doing a right click, double click, but for the entire zone in one command. So that can be fairly useful. The last option that I want to show you is when you want to follow, when you want to replace all empty cells with the same value. For example, if everything that doesn't include value, you want to have null written, you would select the zone that it applies to. You would do exactly what we just did to get started. So function F5, click on special, click on blanks, and OK. So again, it highlights all of my blank spaces. Instead of going with the plus like we just did, I'm going to replace that with null. And then you're going to hit Control and Enter, and it replaces all of the content of your cells with the null. So those could be pretty easy ways to manipulate data and, massively get what you're looking for. So let me try back my my friend over here with the tilde to see if I'm going to have more chances here. There you go. So for some reason, my Excel has been having a little bit of issues. So that's what I wanted to show you. So essentially, just to remember, we actually did a control find to replace all of the revs with the tilde. Once we did that, I added 2 columns, and now we're using the text column to use the tilde as the delimiter to split the part number and the rev. I click on next. I'm going to go input my data over here and click on finish. There you go. So now I have my rev over here and I have my part number over here. So I just need to rename my column. And away I go with part number in one column and rev in the other. One of the functions that I have used the most in my data manipulation life is the Vlookup function. It essentially allows you to bring information over to a master sheet that is available from another report or file, but has a common unique identifier like a part number, a customer number, a supplier number. You may need to pull information from 2-3 different exports in your current system to create one import file for Plex. So essentially over here, I have highlighted the different fields that you need to fill when you're trying to do a Vlookup, and tried to give you some tips on what you need to input in those different fields, because this is often the most difficult portion to understand Vlookups, is to remember exactly what Excel is expecting to input. So the lookup value, we're looking to have the unique identifier that's going to match the data. So in the example I'm going to show you after, we're going to be using the part number as the unique identifier. Then the table, we're essentially looking for the table where the information is going to come from. So I want to get a master file filled, and I want to get the information from another file. So I'm going to go and highlight that file that I'm going to take the information from. Then the call index num is probably the one that's the hardest to remember. It's the number of the result column. So essentially in where I'm trying to go get the information, and I'll get clear on the next page, I'm going to count the columns. So column A is 1, column B is C, column D is 3. C is 3, and we're going to continue like that with all of the letters of the alphabet and more. And that's what we're going to enter here. And the range lookup, in most cases, you're going to put false, because that means that you're looking for an exact match. If you put true, it would look for the closest match. Normally with data manipulation for like imports and things like that, we're using false. So here's a table to help you understand what is expected in the call index num field. So as you can see here, if I would like to return the inventory quantity, you would need to insert 4 as the call index number in the formula. The lookup value over here would be what is included in column A, so essentially the equivalent of my A2. And here on the right is what the result would be. So, if I entered those information. So essentially I would put my A2 over here. I would select where my on my initial file, I would select this whole spreadsheet, and that would give me the table array. And then I would say that I'm looking for column 4 to return the information, and I'm looking for an exact match. And essentially it would bring me back for this part number, the inventory quantity of 100. Oops. So when you're starting to use the Vlookup functionality, it's easier to use the wizard that Excel provides. So I'm just going to open 2 files here. I'm going to make them a little smaller so you can see my two files. Okay, so that's going to be my master, and that's going to be my file I'm taking stuff from. Okay, so this is my master file over here, and I want to add to this file the weight, the status, the inventory, and the quantity. The inventory quantity is showing us two over here. So those are the three pieces of data that I have on my part attribute table. And my link between the two is my part number without the rev. So that's why it's useful sometimes to remove and separate the rev. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start my VLOOKUP at the weight to go and get the information. So I'm going to hit formula, insert function. Now you're going to notice that for me, it comes as my most recently used because I use it often. If you're using that for the first time, you're going to click on all, and then you're going to look for it in alphabetical order, and you're going to find your VLOOKUP in there. I'm going to go back to my most recently used, double click on the VLOOKUP, and that brings over the table that you saw on my sheet a little earlier. So over here, the value I'm looking for, my link between the two is my part number. So I'm putting A2. Which table am I looking, am I taking the information from? It's this entire table over here. Which column will I be looking to get the information from? So I'm starting with the weight. So my weight is in B, so it's column 2. And then I'm going to input false because I want an exact match. And then it returns the information, and I can double click and apply that to everything. Now, if I apply it to the status, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start my VLOOKUP. I'm using my part number as my link. I'm using the same table, but now I'm looking for C. So it's 3. And I'm going to go ahead and click false. And now it brings my status. Same concept over here. Same table. And now in this case, it's D, so it's column 4. False, and I apply it to all. So in a really short period of time, I can get some data merged, and you can do that with multiple different sources of information. So one thing that I want to make sure, or two things I want you to make sure that you are aware of, is that for VLOOKUPs to work correctly, the unique identifier should actually be the first column on each of the files that you're using, because when it does a VLOOKUP, which is a vertical lookup, it's gonna look at the data and then look at everything that's to the right of it. And data must be stored in rows. So it's moving from one row to the other when it's looking for the information. So once you're done with your data manipulation with any of the tricks that we've shown you up to now, that includes formulas, you must ensure to transform your data into text and remove the formulas that are used. So to do so, you're going to copy your information normally. So it could be by selecting the visible cells like we showed you, or the entire spreadsheet, and then right click and select values in the paste option series. So let me just go right back to what we just did. So if we look at my master file, I over here have my formulas, right? So I'm seeing what the end result is, but for real, it's a formula and it's still referencing this sheet. So to kind of flatten the information and make sure that I can use that in the future and import this information, we're going to want to copy. So I'm going to show you an example here. We would do it directly on the file. So you can copy this entire column, then right click and click on paste values. And then it transforms the formula into an actual number, into the value that was there. Some people, or some cases, will call for keeping the VLOOKUP information in your master file so that you can validate where your information is coming from. So in cases like that, those are cases where you can copy your entire worksheet. So I just did Control+C here. You can do a right click and copy, and then you can open a new book, right click and do paste values. And then that would be an example where you can just save this into a CSV to import it into Plex. So your initial file that I used would be your master with all of the pointers and the formulas. And this one over here would become your final version to import into Plex. So in the past, an upload in Plex used to be possible only once, but over the years, the upload process has improved to allow updating some fields in certain tables. So Approved Work Center is an example of this. So it could be if you're adding a new center and it will replace an existing one, you can actually upload the different work center at the place of the one that used to exist. So on this screen, we have actually made your life a little easier by listing the current Plex uploads that can be used to update data. And we've pointed a few elements that are useful to know about what you can or cannot do with those different uploads. So this is definitely a good reference to come back to on our YouTube channel when you are considering to update some information into Plex. I hope that you've learned a lot of new tricks during this session, and who knows, perhaps you will become a data passionate person. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks, Carol. Appreciate you going through this. Has anyone got any questions or maybe tips that they use that Carol Ann didn't bring up? And remember, you're all on mute, so you'll have to unmute yourself before you start speaking. Not seeing anybody unmute just yet. Somebody asked, can we receive this PowerPoint presentation? Sure, you can if you'd like. We'll also have it recorded and throw it out on our YouTube channel sometime today. Carol Ann, do you want to just click to the next slide, please? We've got 6 go lives coming up between now and the end of 2022, so it's been a pretty busy year for us. Our next session is going to be in 3 weeks, and it's going to be a deep dive into MRP and PRP. Honestly, these are 2 of my favorite modules, so I'm going to show you ways that you can love them the same way that I do. So I want to thank everyone for the gift of your time today. We feel pretty strongly that you can never give anything away. The stronger the Plex community is, the stronger we'll all be. So please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel and spread the word about these free, no obligation sessions. Have a great day, everyone. And thanks again, Carol. Good job.
Thank you.